Hey, real quick, just before we get started, just talk a little bit. Milburn had a house fire today in their town. Some units responded in, and unfortunately, they did one rescue attempt, and the resident succumbed to their injuries. We want to give our condolences to the citizens of Milburn, and a shout out to the good work that our firemen do, and Milburn firemen does, working together to try to mitigate these problems. So just a little condolences there. So appreciate us giving the time tonight to talk about it in the fire headquarters. Real quick, I asked my team to come up today because they're really doing a lot of the work to get this project going. We have Deputy Chief Nelson, everybody knows Deputy Chief Nelson. He's heading up the project team along with Battalion Chief Bimbo and Lieutenant Harnoids. They're really the group that's really working. They're meeting once a week with our internal group to really get the crust of how we're going to build this building with cost savings in mind and what it takes to build a firehouse to meet our needs today and also moving forward. So we do a quick little talk on that. So real quick, here we go. Real quick, I'm just going to a quick little recap. This is our couple of stages. Fire department was incorporated, was built in 1890. This building, the top picture, was across from Summit Diner. We occupied that building for a period of time on and off between 1890 and 1920. The bottom left, the middle portion, was our original firehouse, which was from 1901. And then in 1948, to the left, they built an addition onto it. And we moved, and we've been occupying that site ever since. And then in 1976, they put an addition onto the right side of that building. So it's been an old building, a lot of additions built onto it. So we'll kind of incorporate some of the features, as you'll see later on, into some of these buildings into our new structure. Ironically, we did a historical background on that site, and this was a lumber yard that was owned by one of our first fire chiefs, Muchmore. It was kind of located on the tail end of that site, more towards Delano Duane. Did a little research, and this is kind of the historical site that this was on that site way back in the late 1890s. Real quick, we're just going to do a quick project recap, how we got to this point. Some project schedules, what's been done on the site so far to prepare for the build, architectural design, and some improvements that we have in a new build we don't have in our old building. Right. So real quick, we started this process in June of 2014. We did a quick needs assessment study on our current building to see if it was feasible to build on our existing site, and we can do any kind of renovation to the existing building. So we hired a LeMay and Wilcox to do the study. We did an evaluation of the site itself. We looked at vehicle circulations around the firehouse, the apron, the visibility, safety. We looked at training features within the building, and we also looked at the building itself, elements of the building, and we looked at a life safety code within the current building. We also looked at gender equality of building, how it fits for different genders of our needs going forward in the public when you enter our building. We looked at emergency response path in and around the building. We looked at apparatus bays, how they fit our current apparatus and our operations. For decontamination, which is a big part of why we need one of our firehouses is deficient in. And also the mechanics of the building, plumbing, electrical, and all the data systems. And very quickly we learned that the building is old, the site can't support a new building, and our firehouse needs to get moved off-site. That led to a feasibility study in 2017. We looked at we looked at our firehouse, our current operations, and what we need square footage-wise to operate. So we kind of did a basic layout of things like our decon room, our turnout gear room, lack of elevators, EMS storage. We also looked at some admin needs, what we need to operate currently into the future, and we got all these boxes, we call them, put them together, and it came up with the total square footage of what the fire department needs to operate today, and also moving into the future. So that's kind of how we got the size of the building based on a couple of those factors. And then we looked at a couple of different sites in Summit, and then the site that we proposed to build on was the Broad Street East lot. That out of all the sites we looked at, this put most fit our needs square footage-wise and also movability-wise in and out of traffic compared to the other two sites that we looked at. That led us to, and as Council knows, in the beginning of the year, we contracted LeMay and Wilcox, the architectural firm. So we've been working with them since January, and we were authorized to go to the first two steps, which is design development, which is the step we're currently in now. And right now, we're just about to finish that. After we go in front of the planning board in late June, we'll move on to the construction documentation phase. And the design development phase, we started to do some site preparation work. We took the footprint of our proposed building, and we did some boring samples on the site to see what the soil composition was, can support a structure this size. And then based on those findings, as council knows, last meeting, we authorized to go to a second part of some environmental work, more so looking at a lot of the historical fills on this site. So they'll be starting out this Friday on that site. It's probably going to take about 1 day, and they're going to do about maybe 15 to 20 borings on that site to see what the ground is made up of and try to get some historical fill out of there. So this is currently now, this is what we're looking at. Like I said, our product team spent a lot of time on its design. This is kind of the design we're probably going to present to the planning board. A lot of features in here that we have is here. This area here is a decontamination room off our apparatus bay. Firemen can come in here and they can take all their old turnout gear off that's been contaminated, go through a series of decontaminate. They can also go in here and gross decon, shower. And this area here is more of a storage locker room for all their turnout gear. It's also an EMS storage room, a place to fill our SBA bottles. And I noted that this whole area is separated from the rest of the building because all the contaminants that are in there. So they spent a lot of time designing that feature. We're also going to have a fire prevention education room. We do 200 plus education visits to fire every year. So this room is going to enable us, the citizens, to come in and have a special place to come to. We're going to kind of design a lot of interactive props for the kids to get involved with, along with fire prevention activities as well. This is the mezzanine. One of the goals of this new build was to incorporate a lot of training features into this firehouse. We spent a lot of time going off-site around the county, around the state, around the country, doing a lot of trainings. So one of our goals is to incorporate, just by design of the building, it creates a lot of open spaces that we can take advantage of. So this is going to have a lot of opportunity to do a lot of training right in our building. One of the features we're looking at too is do a little mini Summit streetscape of what downtown Summit looks like, and have a lot of firemen. We can actually do a lot of training right in these rooms. Have some partitions that are movable, kind of different rescue scenarios. Then also incorporate into the second floor is our EOC and our training room. This room is going to be a lot of state-of-the-art technology, a lot of training, and a lot of EOC, a lot more web-based now. So we're looking to do a lot of interactive training in that room. And also we have our typical admin areas in here. We have our day room. We have some outside training props. This area is part of the bays. Our program requirements didn't really dictate us to build anything bigger. So this is just an open space on the third floor. We're going to have some outside training props incorporated into this area. Then we have our dormitories and our exercise room into here as well. They also have a pole hole in this area.
Sorry, what? We also have a what?
A pole hole for fire. It'll be on the third floor.
Oh.
You have a pole for the firemen to
Got
get
it,
down.
got it.
Have to have a pole.
Yeah.
I know, you do.
Exactly.
My son always wanted one from
Design.
his bedroom to the kitchen.
Yep. And one of the things that we did differently in this build out was that we incorporated some space for the EOC. We learned in a lot of past events in Summit, EOC gets very crowded. Sometimes we're there for long durations. So it involves people taking showers, having needs like that. So we actually had some rooms set aside just to support the EOC functions into this area. We also had a room in the dormitory for the team that spends the night, just a room, a private room, so they can actually offset some overnight hours into the EOC. So kind of the function we kind of missed during the last couple of big storms in Summit. So that was kind of a need that really need to address on that. So right now we're in the process of doing a lot of value engineering with our current layout. We're meeting our project management team led by these gentlemen here today. We're meeting every week. We spend about 2-3 hours every Monday going over all kinds of design concepts. We also been talking to the architects. One of the goals is to look at every square inch of this building, design it where we can save money. Certain areas, an example of that was the original design had an open apparatus bays. They were wide open. Talked to the architects, and we learned very quickly that if we put a column in the middle of the building, we can save about $500,000 in construction costs. So all those little things we're looking at. So we're going by room, looking at it, try to value it as best we can. So when we do come out to bid, we hope that we have a budget that's well within our capital line items. And we're also looking at some sustainable design features. We're looking into this building. As we said in the past, we're not going to go for LEED certified, but there's a lot of initiatives we're going to incorporate into this building. Things like lighting, floor coverings, try to get floor coverings that not require a lot of maintenance, polished concrete, and also a lot of natural. You'll see later on, I have a lot of rendering to the outside, a lot of glass, a lot of natural light, so we don't have to put a lot of lights on. The things like that we're looking to incorporate into this building. There are a lot of other things we could do. One to present this package. A lot of residents have been talking about solar panels, things of that nature. We didn't include this in the initial budget, but other things, as we move forward, we can make decisions on if we want to get into those type of energy savings. So architectural design, we try to look at the building in town. We attended a lot of the Broad Street West redevelopment meetings. We heard the public. They had a lot of people that went there. There was a lot of renderings of different type of buildings around Summit, around the country, and kind of looked at what the appetite for the Summit residents wanted. And also we wanted to look at some of our old historical buildings. This is our firehouse on Summit Avenue, and try to incorporate some of the design features into our current building. So this is our rendering we're probably going to go with. It's been beat up a lot. We spent a lot of time adjusting and looking at it. Some of the features are all you'll notice there's a lot of windows around the building. That kind of go with our sustainable initiative to try to create a little more less light in the building. Some architectural features that are around town are the big copings around here that go around. We're also going to move our bell monument that's currently at our old location onto the site. So we're going to bring that over and have a little dedication area from all the few firefighters that pass line of duty, and also some of the memorials that we have of our existing site. This view is looking at if you're coming up Broad Street from Park Avenue. This is the view that we have coming up. And these are bifold doors. We learned that they're a little expensive then, but they're very, very cost effective, and they're also very, very little maintenance on them. So a lot of our roll-up doors, they break down a lot of maintenance. So these are things we're looking at to kind of stay in the building further and kind of lessen our costs. And also notice a lot of the glasses up top. Then again, trying to get into that initiative on not having a lot of lights on in the building, a lot of natural lighting. And this is the view if you're coming down Broad Street, going towards Park Avenue. This is another view that we have on the one side of it. Then again, the doors here and the landscaping in front of it. So next steps, we're just about to finish the first step of design development. We'll be doing construction documentation. That'll take us probably to November, December-ish. And then the next step is bidding. So our timeline is hopefully go to bidding by the beginning of 2020. And then do some permitting, and then if all goes according to plan, we'll look into do some construction in sometime in late spring of 2020. That's kind of the timeline that we came up with. When we first sat down with the architects, we put together a timeline of projects and milestones and goals we wanted to meet. So that's the kind of the time frame that we're looking to do. With that is the presentation. So if you have any questions at all, we're happy to answer.
Great, thank you very much, Chief. Let me start opening it up for questions. Greg?
Thank you, Council President. So first of all, condolences to the family of the victim in Millburn. Thank you for the brave efforts of the Millburn and Summit Fire Departments. So I think it's important to point out three different things. The first is that the fire department has been continuing to do a spectacular job of keeping us safe out of a building that, as you can see from the beginning of the presentation, really is subpar currently. The second thing is that it makes sense to do this now while we're talking about Broad Street at the same time. And the third thing is that if we're going to be doing this kind of a project once every roughly 100 years, I think it's definitely commendable to the guys up here that we're really taking the time to make sure that we do it right. And part of what that means is going to be parking, which we're going to talk about at a next meeting, and they're going to talk about at the planning board, but also the sustainability piece, and especially the value engineering piece. I think that, it's really a great thing that we're taking all of that really seriously.
Yeah,
so
great.
That's it for me. Thank you.
Okay. Marjorie?
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Chief Evers, for the presentation. I'm really pleased to see that you're doing the value engineering and looking at ways to control costs. I think that's great.
Yeah.
It's really important that we try to, to rein in the costs and,
Yep.
and as you know. The question that I had for you was, you mentioned solar panels. Is the building built in such a way that it's compatible for having solar panels? Will it be built in a way that is
Well, yeah, it
compatible?
can. It can accept solar panels. It's just really, we're looking at it, if there's enough square footage to make it cost effective, we're going to get the value of adding the panels. So, but
Right.
there is an area on top of the firehouse, the big flat roof area, so it could accept solar panels.
So-
And we're gonna dive into that probably during the next phase of, try to be a little proactive and try to get that question out there. We're gonna do a little study on it. If you do the solar panels, what's the take on it, how much you can put up there, and is it cost effective, or are we gonna yield enough to make it, worth the money we're spending on it, so. But yeah, we're definitely gonna look at that. We'll have that as kind of an option. If you wanna go down that road, we can definitely have that information available when the time comes up.
I guess my question also, the second question is, it may not be cost effective now, but the cost of panels are coming down.
It could,
So
yeah.
if you prepare the roof in a way that it can accept panels
Yep.
as the technology improves, that might be something to do down the road.
Yep. Yeah, but
So
there
that's
definitely is
something
area that could accept panels on
Okay,
the roof, so.
that's
And one
great.
thing I forgot to mention in the slide, I probably skipped over because I was talking so fast, is that we've been working with a couple contractors, just trying to get their opinion on where we stand. Everything, these buildings are based on square footage costs. So we have been building out this building. We've been trying to get a little advice on, are we within the square footage that we projected that we would be at square footage wise? So trying to get some outside interest on making sure as we go through this building, as we design it, that we're well within the square footage cost. So hopefully we're within our budget and below our budget, so.
Thank you. Matt?
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Chief, for the presentation. It was very good. In addition to sustainability, which I'm glad you're working on, I have questions about resiliency. I know that Councilman Vartan and I attended a meeting about a lot of towns in New Jersey are putting microgrids in their towns, and considering the increase in severe weather that we're likely to get over the next 50 years, is there anything in this that battery backups, things like that you're factoring in?
Yeah, do you want to take the time?
Yeah, actually, some of the requirements are for the EOC is that we have a standby generator, backup generator. So the building will have a generator, much like we do today. As far as battery backup and all that stuff, I don't think we've really explored that.
Yeah.
But we're trying to hit the standards as required for the EOC and firehouse construction. So there is some resiliency as far as the generator goes.
Yeah. Well, we just saw in this presentation, there's these sort of shed-size batteries that you can buy, basically, that can store like 8 days' worth of power in them. And it's possible, with the Tesla manufacturers, things like that, it's possible one of those might be better than a generator that burns diesel.
Yeah, we can definitely look into it.
Yeah, we have to look into that and see whether it's, I guess you have to look at the cost and
Yeah.
Obviously those costs are coming down as those things are designed better and better.
Yeah.
So I guess we have to see where that fits into the design.
Yeah.
And really room and everything else. I mean, how much room do we have on the property?
Agree. And I don't want to go too much in the weeds, but there is a way you can buy the power at night and then use it in the daytime, which helps to get your money back. And the other thing I want to know, I know that we've talked about having other Union County fire departments come and train with us after we build this facility. Is that still a possibility?
Yeah, so one of the goals was with the, with doing a little, with the training initiative, to have a lot of training is to have some out the agents come in on weekends, volunteer departments, paid departments, to do some training. Also, the EOC is gonna have a lot of technology for a lot of the web-based training.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of one of our goals, once we get everything established, to offer some training to other departments coming to Summit and train in the Summit.
Right.
And we won't be doing any kind of live burns, everything will be dry, but we'll have the props there and all the equipment. Instead of flowing water, we'll be using compressed air to fill hose lines, to simulate us dragging hose up stairways and all. So that'll all be built into the space we already have into the building, so.
Right. That'll be good.
Yeah.
And then my last question, a little technical, but so we're boring these holes in the parking lot for the new place to see what's down there, right? Because it's got a historic fill issue. But usually the remedy, I mean, do we have to excavate a lot to build the new building? Is that why you have to do that?
Yeah, we do. So the initial, part of doing the first geotech work was to look at the composition of the soil. Right? Everything had the compression rate to it. So they look at what the soil is made of, and that tell the engineers how much soil they have to remove from that lot to get down to solid ground that'll support our structure. So based upon the phase one or the first geotech work, we got to excavate probably around 4 to 5 feet out of that site, wherever the building's going to be. It's not a tremendous amount of fill, but it's not a little. It's kind of, in between a site. But it's understandable for all the historical fill that was in. As you know, that trail used to be elevated years ago. They dug it out, and all the fill went left and right of the tracks, and that whole lot is kind of built on that fill that was dug out.
Right.
The phases we're doing now, that we're going to start on Friday, is really going to look at what kind of old historic fill is down there. That used to be an old offshoot to the rail system. Do a lot of underground railroad lines. They hit a lot of what they think metal on the initial borings. So the second phase is looking what's under that ground. So try to get a good idea. So when we do go out to bid and we do the engineering specs, we have a good idea what's on the ground. So try to keep that cost from escalating on that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's it.
Anyone else? I have two questions, Chief. One is, what's the square footage overall that you guys are looking at right now with the building?
Total square footage is 33,000 square feet.
And when, and is, you had said that previously you guys had done analyses as far as what is the square footage that you would need for properly sizing a building. Is that within the range of what you're?
Yeah, so when we did the programming phase dictated what the square footage would be. So when we went through the programming phase, we looked at what square footage we needed through operations, through admin areas, industry standards, and all those have a generic square footage to them. And all those build-outs came up with the size of the building. So that's how they start with boxes, small boxes, build out based upon our needs, admin operations, and that kind of, at some point, we have enough spaces, and then they tally up the square footage. So that kind of dictated how we had all the square footage.
And I thank you for doing the value engineering. Obviously, it's good that you guys are doing that. When do you think we would know what basically an all-in cost for this is?
So we're going to finish, we'll finish the design development at the end of June. So the next step is construction documentation. Probably about a month into that, we're going to go back and re-estimate what everything's going to cost before we get too deep into it, and then we'll kind of know, on square footage, what that's going to be. That'll give us the opportunity to make some adjustments if needed before we get too deep into the construction documentation. So probably, I would say probably sometime in July, we should have a re-estimate of what the building's going to cost, once we finish the design development, so.
And I think that would be good at that point in time to share it with the council
Yeah.
as far as what we're looking at.
Yeah, that's been our goal, is to keep it under budget, so we're really doing, these guys are doing a tremendous job
And
on
we
keeping that
appreciate
cost
it.
down,
And
so yeah.
so do the taxpayers.
Yeah, so.
Let me open it up to the public. If there are members of the public that would like to ask any questions, now is your time to ask questions about the presentation. Does anybody have any questions that they want to ask? Feel free. Okay.
If I can just take one more minute?
Absolutely.
I would like Patanti and Bimbo, real quick, one of the big features in this building is the decontamination of our firefighters and how it affects our firefighters long-term with cancer and stuff. So just maybe real quickly, just give a quick little debrief on the decon area.
Sure. One of the things we worry about now as firefighters is the occupational cancers that we're facing for the rest of our lives. One of the areas we're not really skimping on is how we're going to protect ourselves moving forward. I think it benefits us, it benefits the city. What we're finding out is the gear that we use to protect us at fire incidents, we're bringing all that contamination back with us to the firehouse. And as it off-gasses, we're being exposed, not just at the fire scene, we're being exposed for the rest of the time. They could off-gas for a couple days. So what we built into the structure is a decontamination area where we could bag up the gear on scene, bring it back to the firehouse, put it right in an extractor that cleans it totally, gets all the contaminants out. And then, as opposed to waiting for, several hours till we're back in service, going upstairs and showering, we have showers right off the engine room floor, so we could go in and clean those contaminants off of us. And also the gear storage area, where right now it's right on the apparatus bays, and we're exposed to those contaminants. Anyone that comes in the building is exposed to those contaminants. In the new building, we have a gear storage area that's its own separate area. It's got its own ventilation. It has its own HVAC. It's climate controlled. For one, it's better for the gear because being out in the bright lights and in the sun, it wears the gear a lot quicker, so it protects the gear and it protects us. And this way, that gear isn't ventilating anywhere else into the building. Anything that off gases gets blown right outside. It's not an environmental hazard. It's more, to protect us and protect anybody that comes in the building. So that's one of the areas that, we're pretty steadfast that we're going to make sure we do that right.
Great, thank you. Okay, before you leave.
I just want to say thank you. You've been working really hard on all this, gentlemen, and we appreciate it. And I think it's long-term, it's best for the city to have firefighters that are protected and are going to want to work here. So, thank you.
And thank you for the support. so far.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, and that's it. Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Okay.